Right. You have to stick with the facts. You have to tell the story, but there is a part because you have to make a recommendation to the judge. So you are giving your opinion, you're giving your assessment, and you say, this is judge, this is what I think we should dismiss the case, or we should take jurisdiction, or we should get custody, physical custody of the dad, or whatever, or the mom, or whatever. So you do have to make an assessment. You have to make a recommendation. Very similar to a probation officer. Probation officer says, hey, these are the facts. This is what Joe Jones did. And now, he stole bread because he was hungry, as opposed to he stole jewelry because he just wanted to fence it.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the Author Podcast. We get to meet great authors from around the world, talk about their journey as an author, and as well, find out more about their books and what they're writing about. And Lance is here with us today, and he's got an interesting background. He's now enjoying the elements of retirement, but he's got some background in helping and serving his community and serving people who don't have a voice. And I'm really excited to have Lance here on the podcast. Lance, welcome to the show. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Well, thank you for having me.
Excellent, Lance. Let everybody know where you are, first of all, in this big world of ours.
I'm in San Luis Obispo, which is just north of Santa Barbara.
Beautiful. Excellent. And you were saying before we hit record that you were swimming recently. Is this true? Outside? Come on.
Yes. I belong to a gym that has a couple of different locations. And yes, I was swimming yesterday outdoors.
Okay. For those, yeah.
A little chilly, but I'm kind of warm-blooded, so I make do. Wasn't too crowded. That's why I like to swim at that time. Right? It's not too many people.
So we're recording this in the beginning of February, and I'm in Canada. So swimming is not an option unless you bring something to break the ice. So, yeah. So there you go. That's a good. I'm a little jealous, Lance. I'm a little jealous of the weather for you. This is good. Excellent, Lance. You are retired, but you've also been helping people in your community for many, many years. Can you kind of give us a little bit of your background, Lance? Because I think that feeds into your writing and who you are today. You've helped a lot of people over the years. Can you give us a little background?
Oh, I hope I've helped people along the way. I was a child welfare social worker for 34 years. I started in Los Angeles County, and then after 5 years, went to San Luis Obispo County. And for all but one of those years, I did court cases. So that was my feeling with the foster care and juvenile court system. There's all sorts of, you have emergency response workers, but the vast majority of cases never go to court. But I handled the ones that did. And Los Angeles County was going through a lot of changes at the time, as well as a larger child welfare system. And it was very frustrating. So I started writing, wanting to make the system better. Started writing it back when I was in LA County. However, I didn't finish the book until nearly 30 years later when I was in retirement, and the system had changed. And so the book kind of through my career talks about how the child welfare system has changed, generally for the better, but not always for the better.
Okay.
And so I was motivated to make the system better. And then the other motivation was to encourage people to become foster parents or guardian ad litems or CASA workers. They call them guardian ad litems in some states, CASA workers on others. And then just to hopefully to just dispel some of the disinformation that's out there about child welfare.
Okay. So what age group were you working with then? Like infants to like teenagers? Is that kind of the age group?
Oh, well, actually, you work mostly with the parents.
Oh, the parents, okay.
That's so. I mean, you work with the children too, of course, but you have to get the parent healthy, drug free and that kind of thing. So my caseload was anything from infants until 18, and then the system changed, and then kids who were we used to say, you graduate and turn 18, shake your hand, good luck. Now, in most states, there's a program for extended foster care up to the age of 21.
Oh, wow.
So I had, at the end of my career, I had kids as old as 21 or 20 and a half in my caseload, and not too many infants at that time, but the whole caseload, I had a range of ages.
How did you originally get into this, and as far as a career, what was the starting point for you?
Well, I got a master's in psychology from Vanderbilt University. I was on a PhD track and really realized that the academics was not for me. That was not my path in life. I returned to my native California. I was working with a group of dual diagnosis, people developmentally disabled and have a mental health diagnosis. And I was partnered with someone else who was which is kind of a sheltered workshop thing. And the person suggested, well, why don't we try to get Dale a job as a dishwasher in county cafeteria? And I didn't really like this coworker. And it was just one of those people who, you say green, they say red, But then I caught myself, that's a good idea. So we made a little field trip down. This is in the pre-internet age, down to the Hall of Administration in LA County and look at job listings. And they had everything from arborist to zookeeper. And fortunately, child services worker came before dishwasher, and that's how I found my job.
Alphabetically, there you go.
Yeah. So, and they were hiring, and just to show how much the change was, you have a supervisor, the 8 people in the unit. They ranked people in the unit, not alphabetically in the employee roster, but by seniority. After 1 year, I was in the middle of the pack. That's how much the changing and how many people were hiring. That's how chaotic it was. After 1 year, I was like in the middle of the seniority level. So that's one reason why I think the system was a lot of chaos at the time. Everybody agreed with, and slowly, bureaucracies move at glacial pace, but they do move. The system got better.
Was it an emotional job for you to be dealing with families in all different environments and different situations? Because you could go work at a factory and build cars and don't have the same kind of emotional connection with a vehicle as you make a car. You're dealing with human life and really some pretty, very intense situations, I would believe.
Yes, that's the gratification. Yeah. The bad days were worse than the most bad days at work, but the good days were also better than good days at work. How excited can you be if you're right, work in a tire factory and you installed, one day's pretty much the same. But they were very intense days, both the good ones and the bad ones. So fortunately, many good.
So the idea of writing and capturing kind of your journey at the same time was helpful for you then as you got to work through your career?
Well, it kind of was helpful for me to kind of work things out. And yes, I was kind of mad about how some of the parts of the system, and that's why I started writing. And I saw an ad on TV, Covenant Books. I looked at some other companies, Covenant Books, as to be approved for them. You have to go it has to adhere to Christian values. There's like a panel. About half their catalog is religious, and the others are regular books, but they have nothing. There's nothing anti-Christian about them. And foster parents they're not zealots generally, but they are more often church-going people than the general. And that's one of the things that kind of drew me to that company. So I signed a contract. It included editing services, it included book cover, it included making a video about your book. But I had kind of a bad experience with them, to be honest. One of the things in the contract was that after 2 years, to keep their book on their shelf, so to speak, you had to pay a maintenance fee. Well, first the maintenance fee was only like $39. And then by the time last time it came up, it was 100 and something. And I said, no, that's too much. I don't want to pay that to simply have my book on your computer. That's not what most publishers do. And so I went with the new publisher. And most of my book, writing court reports, I don't want to boast, but I write fairly clearly, very logically. It's different than writing a novel. So there was a lot of structural changes. There were awkward sentences here and there, some capitalization things. Some of the things like I learned, most books are written with the Chicago Manual of Style. In psychology, we use the APA format, which is slightly different. That was the learning thing to learn. Okay, this is everybody uses the Chicago Manual of Style. And I also, along the way, picked up Grammarly. That's a very good, not perfect, but it checks your grammar errors, your capitalization, your spelling, and all those kinds of things. Once in a while it'll come up with no, that's not what I mean, but it's very helpful, I think, in many ways.
So if you could go back in time and talk to yourself before you started the journey of writing, now that you know what you know, anything you would do different? Any advice you'd give yourself?
I'd look for a different company, and I would look for. Now they did do editing services, but again, it was more. It's not so much the quality; it was just the pace. The person who edited my book had a PhD in English, so the quality wasn't an issue. It was just kind of the pace of things. So, and they did a book cover, which is something that I couldn't do, and they did I'm sorry, take that back. Again, the picture on my book, I had to get that image. They did the formatting and everything, but the image is that of a young woman looking out a window with a child in her hands, and it looks like she's apprehensive, but she's also hopeful. There's kind of like two emotions, and that's exactly the image that I wanted to capture. I pulled it off Getty Images are one of those things, and then paid a small royalty to the company. Or I think Covenant did pay the royalty, but the picture is not of a client. It's a Finnish photographer. It shows you what small world we live in. It was a picture of his sister and his nephew. So that's who's on the cover of my book.
Now, you've gone on to write multiple books for the readers that are listening. Can you kind of give us an overview of the different books you have written? And then we're going to talk a little bit more about them.
Well, in child welfare, the parents that come to juvenile court, if they're poor enough, just like in a criminal case, they get a court-appointed attorney. That's true about 90% of the time. So there's a link between poverty, child abuse, child neglect, and roughly about 2/3 of our cases are neglect due to substance abuse. And one of the things is just one of the things I bugaboo when researching my book. I found that in some states, parents have to represent themselves, even if they're poor, and that's atrocious. So if you're arrested for a DUI with a child in the car, juvenile court in some states, you don't get to represent yourself. Now, granted, you've made a mistake there, but still, having to handle the legal process on your own, I think when you're poor and not articulate, don't understand the system, that just doesn't seem fair. But that's that. So I wrote the second book, Build a Better Bridge, Social Policy for the 21st Century. And it looks at the war on poverty programs and from the Johnson administration, and looks at the history of welfare. Welfare goes back before war on poverty. There was food programs, and there was aid to dependent children. And so our government has always had some commitment to the poor. Even before the Revolutionary War, there were charity hospitals and what have you that were city sponsored. But now these modern programs, what have they done? How could they be better? And then we're understanding the government can't solve all the issues of poverty. What can we do as a society to help eliminate poverty? And one of the things is that if you don't graduate high school, you're probably going to use some sort of social network in your life. And you're going to be a burden on the taxpayer in blunt economic terms. The dropout rate for boys is much higher than it is for girls. And I think that we need more identification of that's a real underreported issue in our country, yet very expensive. A girl who drops out of high school, she's statistically more likely to get pregnant and become, go on welfare. The boy who drops out of high school is more statistically more likely to get involved in, criminal activity. His failure to graduate is a matter of public safety, and so we need to make a better effort at getting boys to graduate from high school. Recognize that. So that's one of the things I point out in the book, and other things that changes that don't cost a lot of money. I understand the conservative argument. We don't want to spend money, and that's why the bridge analogy. Let's pay, $50 million for a bridge that's going to last 100 years, as opposed to $20 million for a bridge that's only going to last 10 years. So that's the Build a Better Bridge there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So do it right. Everybody wants the pothole fixed. Would fix it in a way that's efficient.
Right.
Then one of the things I learned along the way is that fiction books sell much more than nonfiction books. People like the escapism of them. And 80% of non-fiction books are bought by women. So I wanted to write a book that was targeted that audience more. My wife and I were at the History of Diving Museum in just outside of Key West, and saw there the first underwater movie. And it was done by a couple. And this woman was like the co-director of the movie. And I thought that was very impressive. She couldn't vote, but she could help direct the first underwater movie. And so that kind of inspired me. I had been thinking about writing the book in that way. So the third book is Beyond Amelia, Lesser Known Women of Yesteryear. So it's what I call an airport book. It's a very easy to read book. If you're waiting for a flight to take off, or you're on a long flight, you want to kill some time, but you don't want anything too heavy to read because it's a little hard to concentrate on a plane. So it's what I call an airport, but nice light, and you can put it down and, pick it up. And it just profiles women of history of different types of female scientists, female leaders, and how, as best I could find, their interaction with the men in their life. Some fathers were supportive. Some fathers will encourage over the mother's objection. Oh, yes, you should be. Go ahead. I'll pay for your education, even though most girls at the time didn't get education. So that's the kind of thing. So it's kind of in the light book. And then one of the things, to go back to my beginning, is very, very few of the families I worked with had any connection to organized religion. And I'm not a go to church every kind of person, but faith is important to me. And so, and my latest book is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. A court investigator examines the Gospels. We live in a very modern world,
Wow.
and the world is different than in biblical times. That doesn't mean Jesus' message is no longer relevant, but people look at the Gospels differently, and than they did when people were illiterate. And so I talk a little bit about the difference between literal truths and spiritual truths. It might be a literal truth that Jesus was born in a manger. And I go talk about why that might be a literal truth. A lot of people say, well, the story of Mary and Joseph, going to Bethlehem, that may just be, that doesn't conform because there's no census being taken at the time. There's no record of that kind of thing. No other people being migrated. So, but there is a spiritual truth there, but there may also be a literal truth. So that's one of the things, because I wanted to bring people to faith. And one of the things I said as a social worker, we don't do the hard sell, the soft sell. How do we lead people? Because we try to do the used car salesman approach as a social worker. It's not going to work, And so this is what this book is about. It's not dogmatic. It's more rational. It's more, and there's some interesting things. Like there's a tomb of Jesus in India, and it's an official government recognized site. So that's those kind of little interesting things that I found along the way that, when I read, I like read and find something new and interesting. And so that's what I hope the book was, something different than you're going to get from most religious books.
Who would you say your target audience is for that book? And specifically, do you have somebody in mind that you're trying to reach?
Well, I think people who are trying to find something between the zealots and the atheists. And that's like most people, most people fall somewhere between those two extremes. And I think I appreciate people who are so faithful that they knock on doors and they try to evangelize you and join their church. I admire their dedication, but I also think that it ticks people off so much that it kind of generalizes to not just their religion, but the religion in general. And so this is, again, soft approach to where I think most people are comfortable with. Oh yeah, this makes sense to me because of this kind of logical thing and coming to God, not just because the Bible tells you so, because you feel it is compelled by this by chain of reasoning.
How long did it take you to write this book? Because there'd be some research, there'd be a lot of stuff to go through to find all this information.
Actually, it was because I got into my rhythm of writing and it didn't take me that long, less than a year. It's a fairly short book. All my books are relatively short. That's one of the things, again, writing court reports, that you want to write it to the judge that gets to the, cut to the chase, And some social workers struggled with that. Yeah. They would get too involved in the minutiae and learning to present it in a way that the judge could say, okay, this makes sense to me, as opposed to all the psychological things going on and everything. Make it very clear. And you're also writing to the parents, because yes, the judge reads the report, but so do the parents, so do the attorneys. So it's an interesting audience to write for. And so that I'm very pleased to have had that experience. And I think my experience as a social worker helped me write these books, not just the experiences, but just technical writing in a logical way.
I would think that court documents would have to be truth-based, without opinion, without bias, really. Like, you're just here to state the facts. You're here you can't comment. There's no commentary where you think, well, this is what I believe happened. Like, you kind of have to be showing, because people, like you said, the people that are reading it, judges, lawyers, pretty factual information you're creating, right?
Right. You have to stick with the facts. You have to tell the story, but there is a part, because you have to make a recommendation to the judge. So you are giving your opinion, you're giving your assessment, and you say, this is judge, this is what I think we should dismiss the case, or we should take jurisdiction, or we should get physical custody of the dad, or whatever, or the mom, or whatever. So you do have to make an assessment. You have to make a recommendation, very similar to a probation officer. Probation officer says, hey, these are the facts. This is what Joe Jones did. And now he stole bread because he was hungry, as opposed to he stole jewelry because he just wanted to fence it and for a drug habit. So yeah.
Okay, so you do have some opinion to put into that as well. So all of that writing that you've done in your past and your career, elements of that you bring forward as your own, as an author as well.
Right. And the court report's just breaking down into a section of these are the facts and this is the assessment. So it's not like you put but it's how you choose words,
Yeah.
how you choose words about the situation. And you have to be careful on guard and how what kind of words you use. It's very easy to put a little bias in there if you wanted to. You got to check for that. It's one of those things.
As a writer now, like you're in retirement, are you continuing to write? Is this something you will love doing and you want to do more of this?
I've written 4 books and I'm very satisfied with them. I don't know what another book I would write. I'm not sure. I haven't found each of the books. There was a calling. There was urge. I'm not finding that for a 5th book right now. So maybe more pickleball in my future. I don't know.
Again, I think that's one thing that's interesting from a reader's point of view is understanding kind of the writing process. We don't really know what it takes as a reader to write these books and share these stories. And, you could just write a book for the sake of writing a book, but you need that inspiration, right, to get behind there and start writing.
Yes. And one of the things is, I just want to mention that my book, the first book, In Place of the Parent, all the royalties from that book go to Razom, humanitarian program in Ukraine. Because I want to do something, my books, I want to do something with it, make a dent and move the needle a little bit. And so that's my very modest way of trying to help out there. So all the royalties from In Place of the Parent, the other royalties help support my website, that kind of thing. So writing is not particularly lucrative, but you have to do it because of the joy and the meaning it gives to you and the joy and meaning you hope to give to somebody else.
Let's talk to the parents that are maybe going to be going to family court or being presented, and they're going to be standing before a judge, and people like you will be in the room to help them. But do you have advice for parents that are looking to move out of their current situation, their struggles, and create a safe place for their children? Because I'm sure that you've had time talking to these parents as well and interacting with them. Is there anything you can do for a listener and encouraging them?
One of the interesting things is how different the system is. You said family court. Now, family court is where normally you get a divorce, that kind of thing, custody issues. So even if you're not married and you want to have custody orders, you don't have to be married. You have to go to family court, except in Hawaii. Hawaii handles both the juvenile and in family court. They have the same judge will hear the same type of cases.
Yeah.
So that, and I don't know the system in Canada in particular, but so there's usually a distinct juvenile court system. I think the other thing is that it's very hard. Human nature is we all have faults. We all have things. It's like I said, the drug problem is the substance abuse is the most common problem somebody comes to juvenile court with. It's hard to admit it, but admit your problem and get on. And it's very easy to be embarrassed. I'm sure it's embarrassing to come to court, people accusing things of, and you want to be defensive. That's just a natural thing. But on the other hand, what's beneficial in the long run is, to be honest, because your kid wants to see you sober and the kid wants to see you safe.
Yeah.
She wants to have calm, home life. And that would be my advice. And we also have we always have 2 parents, but that doesn't mean both parents are offending parents. We have a situation where, maybe the mother's, using drugs, she's with her boyfriend, and we have a non-offending father who's been paying child support or visiting here regularly, or maybe regularly, those men need to come forward. And so if and participate, maybe he's been content with being an every other weekend dad. But if the mother has a drug problem and can't care for the child, you need to step up and make changes in your life. And that's a big thing. And what I would advise is to be consistent. But like in any occupation, there's bad cops, there's bad doctors, there's bad lawyers. And if you do have an issue about it, take it up with the supervisor, but take it up in a respectful way. And I've had clients scream at me, and then, what I've learned to say is, I'm not my best social worker when I'm not my best when you scream at me. And then, that was the one thing I found that helped to disarm things. And so that would be honest. And to follow the case plan, ask questions about that. And one of the other things, this is just a bugaboo that I have. I don't know, again, about Canada, but in the United States, we have the Indian Child Welfare Act. So a judge will ask you, or the court system will ask you if you have Native American ancestry, because then if you have you may be surprised at how detailed. We want to know where your grandfather was born, or where your grandmother was born. There was because we have to notify the tribe, because if we miss and the child has Indian heritage and this act does apply, that really changes the system a lot. Bear with us with the Indian Child Welfare Act. It's not one of those things that I think we're beyond that. It's a law that comes from because of things that were done 2 or 3 generations ago. But and so if the act has, in my opinion, is no longer useful, it takes up too much of social worker time that could be devoted to something else and causes resentment in parents. But it's what we have, and we have to comply with the law as it is written.
If somebody was thinking about following your footsteps and going in and serving as you did over all these years, and they're thinking about that's the path for them, any words of advice for them if they wanted to go down this path and serve like you have?
Well, there is a way that Trump has made some changes, and I don't know the details of it, but there used to be a Title IV way that you could get your tuition paid for if you were going into social work. So there was, I think it's Title IV monies, and some schools offer those programs. And again, I would do your homework, and it may still be available. The other thing is to look at how the county does things with after hours. In San Luis Obispo County, we were a small county. We didn't have an after hours unit. Every social worker had to take after hours shifts. So you would work like 8:30 to 5 on a regular day, and then be on call 5 p.m. to 8:30 the next morning, and then work 8:30 to 5 the next day. Well, that was, right, horrible. And then the standby pay was only $3 an hour. So I found that after hours was initially voluntary, and I didn't volunteer, to be honest about it, because I didn't like being an emergency response worker. That wasn't particularly my skill set, and that was very challenging. Some people would find that with families and whatever. I saw lots of women come into the program, become social workers, and then they have children. I can't do these after-hour shifts with children, with young children. So find out how your local county, or in California, it's by county. In most of the country, U.S., it's by state, the child welfare. I'm assuming it's by province in Canada, that the provincial rules. And so find out how that it's done in your local area before you sign on the dotted line and say this is what you want to do. And it's a very rewarding job, not financially particularly, but it is gratifying, and you feel good at the end of the day if you feel really good at a good day. So,
see, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up the emergency service aspect of it and being available after hours. Somebody doesn't know that walking into this. They're like, I have no idea. And it's like, well, are you willing to commit to that? If it's not voluntary, are you willing to commit to that? Because that's a big ask. But that's usually, I would anticipate, based on other people I've talked to, that's when it's most needed. Like it's like 7 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and we need to find somebody to help in the situation. We can't wait for tomorrow. We need somebody now. So that's important that there's people that are available. So that's really important.
And the other thing, that as far as the system, when I started in San Luis Obispo County, we had 15 emergency beds, 15 places where we could take a kid on an emergency basis. During my career, the population of the county about doubled. At the end of my career, we had about 8 or 9 beds. So the number of, so there's a real problem with the shortage of foster homes. And that's one of the things that people want to help out. That will help make the system a lot better. And that's very frustrating when you see a situation, come across a situation. And most of the time, that's true. Of 1,000 phone calls to the hotline, less than 1 out of 1,000 result in termination of parental rights. There's some other outcome 999 times. But in those times when the child has to be removed, you want to be able to have a place where you can take the child. And at some place, especially during the COVID years, it was very hard.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, that'd be really difficult. Didn't even think of that. Okay. Lance, for people that want to follow along and know more about you, where would we like to send the listeners and the readers to come and follow and get more information about you?
The best place is my website, lancehilsinger.net.
Simple, easy. What are we going to see when we get there, Lance?
You'll see a list of my podcast appearances. You'll see the various books. You'll see a link to the short video. It's only about a 42-second video. If you want to be a really, really nice person, you will share that video.
Oh, there you go.
And there's a place where you can ask questions and whatever, and send an email. All the books, though, like most authors, I don't sell books through my website. It's just with shipping costs and everything, it's too expensive. There's the links to Amazon, and it's much easier that way. And also Barnes & Noble.
Good. Lance, thank you so much for making time for this. Thank you for a career of helping your community and helping families. Again, we see what we see on television and in the news. We don't really get time with people like you who are actually the ones helping and being the ones behind the scenes making all this happen for families. So thank you for a career of helping your community and for writing books for us that we can go and enjoy and share as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. Everyone, all information for Lance, his website, all the information for his books, everything, and a video that we should share, all in the show notes where you can click on right from your phone. And I'd love for you to tell others about this. And if you're thinking about a career in this and you're thinking, I'm really interested listening to Lance tell his story, I think I would love to do this. I think Lance would love to hear an email from you. And if you had any questions, he'd love to answer it. But here's a great contact for you. Lance, thank you so much for being on the show.
Again, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.